Earlier today, I was looking for some updates about 3i Atlas, right? Because I wanted to make this video. And I came across this interesting post written by none other than Avi Lobe. And it is titled, "Was the wow signal emitted from 3i Atlas?" It's a very interesting read. Listen. Okay, or you can read with me, whatever you want. The wow signal, for those who don't know, was detected on August 15, 1977 as a strong narrowband radio signal by Ohio State University's Big E radio telescope. Its origin was inferred to be extraterrestrial. The latest natural explanation, accessible here, hypothesized that the wow signal was caused by a sudden brightening of hydrogen line emitted from an interstellar cloud triggered by a strong transient radio source, such as a flare from a highly magnetized neutron star, also known as a magnetar. The wow signal originated from the sky coordinates of right ascension RA equals 19H25M equals 291 degrees and declination of minus 27 degrees. Of course, we all know what these numbers are, right? We all are scientists. On the that was sarcasm, by the way, if you didn't notice. On August 12, 1977, the interstellar object 3i Atlas was at a distance of about 600 times the Earth-Sun separation. Holy shit, that was far away, bro. If you think about it, the distance between Earth and Sun, about 600 times that distance. So this is Earth and this is Sun, and the distance between times 600 was what 3i Atlas was back then in 1977, corresponding to a light travel time of about 3 days. It had the sky coordinates of RA 19 H40M 295 degrees and dic equals minus 19 degrees. These parameters can be inferred accurately given the lack of non-gravitational acceleration for 3i Atlas as inferred in my latest paper here. Hence, the wow signal was separated by approximately 4 degrees in RA and 8 degrees in dic from the direction of 3i Atlas. The chance of two random directions in the sky being aligned to that level is about 0.6%. If the wow signal originated from 3i Atlas, how powerful was the transmitter? Holy shit, do you imagine? So I don't remember how big this thing is, but I think Avi Lobe mentioned something about 20 times the size of a city. I don't remember what city. Or was it a country? Anyways, there will be a video after I read this. I think he was gonna say that there. Anyways, let's continue. But can you imagine how powerful does that transmit? If that's actually true, if the wow signal originated from 3i Atlas, can you imagine how powerful that transmitter is? The detected intensity of the wow signal was in the range of 54-212 Jansky with a bandwidth of about 10 kilohertz. At the distance of 600 IAU, this corresponds to a source power of 0.5-2 gigawatts. Can you imagine really how powerful was that transmitter in order to be able to send a signal so far? The detected intensity of the wow signal was in the range of 54-212 Jansky with a bandwidth of about 10 kilohertz. At a distance of 600 AU, this corresponds to a source power of 0.5 gigawatts, the output of a typical nuclear reactor on Earth. Holy shit! The wow signal was observed at a frequency of 1,420 megahertz, blue shifted by about 10 kilometers per second towards Earth relative to the central frequency of the hydrogen line. This blue shift is of the same order of magnitude but smaller than expected from the approach velocity of 3i Atlas towards the Sun, 60 kilometers per second. So if this thing is flying 60 kilometers per second, that would mean that this thing is traveling at about 3,800 kilometers per minute. If something is traveling at 60 kilometers per second, it will travel 3,600 kilometers in 1 minute. Can you imagine how fast this thing is flying? What? So far, no radio telescope reported data on 3i Atlas. Here's hoping that the coincidence in the arrival direction of 3i Atlas and the WOW signal would motivate radio observers to check whether 3i Atlas shows any radio transmission around the hyperfine line of hydrogen. This raises a broader question. In case we detect an artificial signal from an interstellar object, how should we engage it? Well, the details will depend on the properties of the object. To measure these properties, we should attempt to use all telescopes on Earth and in space. Between October 1 to 7, 2025, NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter on ESA's Mars Orbiters, Mars Express, and ExoMars will observe 3i Atlas as it passes within 29 million kilometers from Mars. Subsequently, between November 2 and 2025, ESA Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer will observe 3i Atlas with various instruments. This urgency of a response will depend on the rank of the object on the Loeb scale. Now remember, in my video 2027 Prophecy, Avi Lobe was talking about a scale, and a scale that he had invented for this object to place it in between numbers, whether it was intelligent or natural. And right now, this object is not sitting at 0. It's sitting at 4, which, as per Loeb or Avi Lobe, this thing seems to have some sort of intelligence. So the way it moves, the way it travels, is very strange because the path that it has, it seems to be doing auto corrections or small micro corrections in order to not crash with these planets. He's mentioning here that the urgency of a response will depend on the rank of the object on the Loeb scale. See the quantitative discussion here and here. Rank 10 will suggest an imminent threat akin to a visitor to our backyard who is capable of approaching the front door. Requiring an immediate response, but even a low rank will necessitate a contingency plan because of the major implications to humanity if the threat is realized. We must consider the possibility of a black swan even from interstellar objects resembling a comet at a large distance, but potentially carrying devastating consequences to our future like a Trojan horse. Now, he makes a good point here because we as humans, we were merely prepared for COVID-19. Who's to say we are prepared when aliens arrive to, I don't know, whether take on humanity, take over the planet, kill us, or, be our brothers. I don't know. But we are not prepared for this, okay? Doesn't matter if all the countries in the world join the fight against aliens, we are not prepared. Because we don't have the power. And these things have been visiting us for thousands of years, who knows, maybe even hundreds of thousands of years. They know our behavior, they know our technology, they know what we're capable of, but we don't know what they are capable of. Our engagement could either be messaged electromagnetically through a radio or laser communication signal, or involve interceptors which cross the path of the interstellar object, land on it, or take a close-up photograph. Our interpretation of data would be biased by our limited knowledge. In analogy with artificial intelligence systems, human reasoning is as good as its training dataset. Where our knowledge is restricted to experiences on Earth, our dating partner might exhibit alien design which go well beyond our current perception of reality. In that case, communication might be difficult, as it is for ants looking from the vantage point of a crack in a pavement at a biker's passing by. So that is the post from Avi Lobe. I just like it's a very interesting read. You can go ahead and find it if want to read that yourself. But let's go ahead and play the video for a moment, because he's making some very interesting points.
I want to know, you mentioned following the data here. What does the data show you in the past? Is there anything that you can compare this to in the past, or is this something just completely brand new that we've absolutely never seen before?
Yeah, it's something we've never seen before, because only over the past decade we had telescopes that can survey the sky for such objects that are sensitive enough, and computers that can digest large quantities of data as we currently have. So this is a completely new frontier, and we found so far only 3 objects from interstellar space, from outside the solar system. We know that they came from far away because they are not bound by gravity to the sun. They're moving too fast. And this one is the fastest. It's moving 600 times faster than the fastest race car that we have on Earth. I calculated that because a car racer in NASCAR wants to put an image of this object and my image on the hood of his car, and in 2 weeks he will go with that car to compete in Las Vegas. And I calculated, I told him that irrespective of how fast he goes, he will not move even close to 3i Atlas, which is moving 600 times faster at 60 kilometers per second. And not only that it's very fast, but it's also anomalous in other ways. And, it's only the 3rd object that we found. In the future, we might find many more, because now we have the Rubin Observatory in Chile that can discover a new one every few months. So in my view, we should check each and every one of them, whether it's a rock, a natural object, or perhaps some technological probe that was produced by another civilization, the way we produced Voyager, Pioneer, New Horizons. We might not be the smartest kid on the block, and we should just open our eyes and see what comes our way from outside the solar system.
You mentioned this object in Chile. Who has access to that? And from your research, how does that compare to what we're currently seeing?
Well, the data that I am referring to that we analyzed, first of all, there is data from about 227 observatories on Earth. These are telescopes all around the world. But in addition to that, we have space telescopes like the James Webb Space Telescope or the Hubble Space Telescope that were observing this object. And we are using all the data at our disposal to figure out its nature. And the limit that the minimum mass of this object, the minimum size of this object that I mentioned before, was obtained by using all of this data in a paper that I submitted to a journal today. And so it's very exciting because this is a new result. It gives us a minimum mass, which is already very large. It's 33 billion tons. This object is a giant object. It's huge, and it might be even bigger than that. And we are just learning about it. And more evidence, more data. It's just like a detective story. The more you have, the better your understanding is of what the nature of the object is. And so I'm looking forward to what we might learn in the coming month as it comes close to Mars on October 3rd, which is just around the corner next week. And then after that, it will pass close to the sun on October 29th. Unfortunately, the Earth would be on the opposite side of the sun. We won't be able to observe this object because the sun will be in our way. But then on March 16th...
I just want to make a note here. Isn't that weird, right? Like, what are the chances of this object like being close enough for us to be able to see it, and then Earth being on the opposite side of the sun so that we don't see it? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
2026, this object will come close to Jupiter. So I'm quite confident we'll have a lot of information about it. And what I really care about is whether the object is natural, a comet, or perhaps technological, in which case, it will change everything for us. And I defined a new scale that is now called the Loeb scale, which is using a rank of 0 for a completely natural object and a rank of 10 for a technological object that might be a threat to humanity. And as of now, I give this object a rank of 4.
Ooh.
And I expect that in the coming weeks, we'll know more about it, so I can either dial it down or dial it up.
What exactly are you using, I guess, for this reference and for this Loeb scale?
Right.
What things are you using to determine between 0 and 10? You say currently we're at a 4, but we're expecting another update in October. Do you have
Right.
any predictions on if that number is going to go up or if it's going to go down based on when we get this next update in a couple of weeks?
No, I think we should be humble and not assume that we can guess the answer in advance. But if you ask me, how do I get to the rank of 4? Well, it's because of the anomalies of this object. There are 5 of them. One is the large size that I already mentioned, that there isn't enough rocky material in interstellar space to deliver such a giant object made of rock to our backyard over the past decade. There is just not enough. And the second is the fact that the object is in the plane of the planets around the sun, which is surprising. There is a chance of 1 in 500 for that to happen at random. So that's a very small chance, 1 in 500, given that this is only the third object that we found. And then there was a glow around the object. Usually around comets, you get some reflected sunlight from dust particles. And then the dust particles reflect sunlight and are pushed away from the sun. So you see that as a cometary tail. But for this object, the glow, the scattered sunlight, was ahead of the object towards the sun. It was actually 10 times longer than it was wide. And that was very puzzling. Why is this object behaving in a way that you don't see a cometary tail behind it, away from the sun, but instead you see something towards the sun? And that was true in July and August. And the physics of that, why that happened, is still not completely clear. And then, in addition, the object turned green recently. It's not clear what is producing the green color. There is a plume of gas around it that is made mostly of carbon dioxide, not water. 87% is of that plume in mass is carbon dioxide, and only 4% is water. The rest is carbon monoxide. And there is a rapidly increasing amount of cyanide and also nickel without any iron coming out of it. And the only place in nature where we find nickel without iron is when we produce nickel alloys. And so the question is whether this nickel without iron in the cloud of gas around it was a result of a technological production process that made this object. So these are various puzzles about it that we don't fully understand. And my approach is when you have anomalies of this type, we should keep our eyes on the ball. We should try and figure out what the nature of the object by collecting more data, more observations, more information from all the assets that we have in space. And in fact, I spoke with Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and she asked me for an update about 3I Atlas, and I mentioned the fact that NASA has various observatories, like a spacecraft called Juno around Jupiter that can be used to observe this object when it comes close to Jupiter. And she wrote, very graciously, she wrote a letter to the head of NASA, Sean Duffy, to encourage NASA to take that data. So I very much look forward to the coming weeks where we will learn more about it.
All right, so that is the update from Avi Lobe. Now, he makes a lot of interesting points, and I also like his approach. He is keeping an open mind, and this is how you, as a scientist, should be acting, to have an open mind, because you never know what's coming our way. It's certainly very interesting, but we'll see what happens and what type of updates we get, what information they are able to gather after October 3rd. And hopefully we'll get new images, hopefully we'll get new data and see what's next with this thing. I think we're probably either in for a huge surprise or a huge deception. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and if you do, consider liking, subscribing, and I see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.